Welcome to my channel. Your tutor Mariam is here. It's the 20 video of Introductory Physics 1 and the first video that I'm going to talk about the motion in 2 and 3 dimensions, which is the fourth subject of Introductory Physics 1. In this video, I'm going to talk about the basic idea of motion in 2 and 3 dimensions. It's kind of similar to what you've learned from chapter 2 and 3, but here is equation of motion is going to be written down in a different way. If you are new to Introductory Physics 1 and like to learn more, hit the subscribe button and like for more. You ready? Let's get started. So far, you've learned what position, velocity, and acceleration of a particle are. So you know displacement gonna be the distance between two positions of the particle, right? And if you divided it with the time interval, you're gonna end up with the velocity. And if you divide the velocity by time interval, you're gonna get the acceleration, right? So for example, let's say I have a x coordinate here, right? I have one particle, so the first position, I'm gonna label it as 1. My particle gonna move in x direction, so it's gonna be the position 2, right? And then this guy right here gonna be the displacement, the distance between the first and second point, right? And if I also consider time and divide it by time, I'm gonna end up with the velocity. And here I'm dealing with the x coordinate and only one dimension, okay? But in this chapter, you need to write down the position, velocity, and acceleration in 3 coordinates. And that's the purpose of this chapter, 3 or 2 coordinates. Let's see how we can write it. Here, you still have displacement, velocity, and acceleration, but this time you need to write it down in 3 coordinates like x, y, and z axis. So what I mean by that is like you have a particle in 3 coordinates. Let's say this guy gonna be x, y, and z, right? And then you have a particle right here, and you're gonna write down the displacement. Like for example, I'm gonna move my particle from point 1 and I'm gonna come here to point 2, right? And now I'm gonna write down the displacement and also calculate the velocity and acceleration. That's what we mean by writing down this parameter in 3 coordinates. Now let's write down the displacement for 3 coordinates. So let's say my R1 have a coordinate as x1, y1, and z1, right? And then my R2 gonna be x2, y2, and then z2, right? And now I'm gonna write down the displacement, like my delta R gonna be R2 minus R1, right? And then it's gonna be x2 minus x1. I'm gonna also write down the unit vector, so it's gonna be I, and then it's gonna be y2 minus y1 in j plus z2 minus z1 k, right? So remember here, you cannot subtract x with y or x with z, and the reason is they have 3 different coordinates. Like one of them is in x axis, the other one is y axis. You cannot subtract x and y axis from each other. X gonna subtract with x, y with y, and z by z. What about the v vector? So let's write it down. So my v vector here gonna be dr divided by dt, right? So dr gonna be d r2 minus r1 divided by dt, right? So if I break it down, it's gonna be dr2 dt minus dr1 dt, right? Then it's gonna be d dt. My r2 has three different coordinates as x1, y1, and x2, y2, and z2. So it's gonna be x2 plus dy2 dt plus dz dt2. Also, I'm gonna write down the unit vector I, j, k, right, minus dx1 dt I plus dy1 dt j plus dz1 dt k, correct? And now I can subtract them. So it's gonna be dx2 dt minus dx1 dt is gonna be I plus dy2 dt minus dy1 dt is gonna be in j plus dz2 dt minus dz1 dt in k. And this is gonna be my v vector. And it's gonna be the same as acceleration. Now let me show you how you can write down the equation of motion in three coordinates. So you know the equation of motion in one coordinate, like x coordinate, gonna be written as this guy, right? So it's depend on the time, acceleration, and velocity. But how about in three coordinates? Like if the particle moves in 3 dimensions, how you can write down the position of the particle? Feel free to pause the video and think about it. So let's say I have three coordinates, like write x, y, and z. Let's write it down in x direction. So for x is gonna be x half of a. So I have the acceleration in x coordinate, so I'm gonna label it as x t square plus v naught x, because my initial velocity as in x might be different, and then I have x naught as an initial displacement, initial position. For y-axis, I have y equal to half of a y t2 plus v naught y t plus y naught. And then for the z-axis is gonna be z equal to half of a z t square plus v z t plus z naught. One thing I like to mention here, you don't need to break down time in three different axes, because technically speaking, time has a different coordinate in physics. Like there are 4 coordinates as x, y, z, and also time. But here you don't need to break down time, because for the introductory physics 1, we don't break down the time. So time gonna be t for all axes. And if you would like to make it simple, you can write it down as this. I'm going to write it down as R. Then it's going to be half of t squared is going to be ax plus ay plus az, and then plus t v naught x, v naught y, v naught z, plus x naught, y naught, and z naught. And this is how we can simplify it. And since I have a vector, I put a vector here, I like to write down as a vector, so it's going to be I, j, k, and same with this is gonna be I, j, and then k, and same with this guy and k. So I'm also write down the unit vector if you would like. Let me show you another example about the velocity of the particle. So here you can see the x velocity of a particle in x coordinate. And this time I'm going to write it down in 2 coordinates. So let's say I have Vx. So it's going to be axt plus v naught x. And then I have Vy, so it's gonna be ayt plus v dot y, right? So now if I go with two coordinates, it's gonna be axt plus v dot x, right? Plus this guy gonna be, and I'm gonna write down the coordinate, a unit vector. And then this guy gonna be ayt plus v dot y in j, right? And let me put the vectors on top. And then if you would like to simplify it, it's gonna be ax I plus ay j t plus v dot x I v dot y j. You don't have to write down the last line, it's just for simplification. In the next video, I'm going to solve a couple of examples about this. If you like my video, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.